Have you ever wanted to see a champion go from average to basically god tier in a single synergy? What's going on, everyone? Doc here, and today I'm going to show you some Storm with her Horseman and Apocalypse synergies. So let's hop straight into it. In Realm of Legends, we're going to activate the Horseman of Apocalypse ability. So Storm with Apocalypse is a little bit special here. So for every single Horseman, they all get the same base abilities, and that includes Storm. So first off, they get 100% bleed resistance, which I don't show at all in this gameplay, but this means that they basically take no damage from bleed, and they instead gain willpower healing from it instead. They also gain indefinite prowess, which you can see there, along with the Horseman icon under Storm. 30% offensive ability accuracy, go unblockable for 2 seconds when the opponent purifies a debuff, and once per fight they'll go unstoppable for 3 seconds when struck. If you want to see a little bit more about this, I also talk about this when I show off Apocalypse in my CCP review of him. So that's all the base stuff that Storm gets, but that's not all that she gets by being paired with Apocalypse. Storm also has a unique synergy with Apocalypse, which you see working here. Winter Soldier now has 14 shocks on him, dealing 6,000 damage per second, 3,000 per tick, 75,000 SP2 crit. So in addition to all of that base Horseman stuff, just by being paired with Apocalypse to start every hit of Storm's heavy attack into a shocked opponent, which you normally place your shocks with your special, 60% chance for every special. Each hit of the heavy attack, so all 4 hits, has a 60% chance to inflict an additional shock debuff. That's how I'm up to 28 shocks there at the end for Winter Soldier. Just over a minute of fighting and only less than 100 hits, which was great. So these shocks deal 90% of modified attack. But the real kicker here is when Storm becomes a Horseman of Apocalypse, because now all of her shocks last 50% longer. So instead of the 8 seconds, those are going to become 12 seconds, and her base shocks get an increased duration as well. And her heavy attacks, all hits are going to refresh all shock debuffs on the opponent. That's the real thing here. So not only are you having a 60% chance to inflict more shock debuffs, but you have a guaranteed refresh on all of the shocks. And that's what's happening here. Shane in an SP2 there. Sadly, it didn't crit, but Deadpool now has 34 shocks on him, pretty much over outclassing the healing that he's trying to do with all of them, and now dealing 12,000 per second entirely from shock debuffs. Storm has always kind of been like before Black Widow Deadly Origin, she was kind of the only champion who really dealt a good amount of shock in a normal way. I mean, you had Nebula, who could deal quite a lot in a really bursty way with her special too and her parry, but it wasn't really sustainable. Storm shows that this is incredibly sustainable. You just need to keep using heavy attacks, which in a lot of matchups will allow you to either parry and heavy attack like I do quite often, or go off of their special attacks and counter it with a heavy attack. So I build up quite a lot of shocks here this whole time. Storm's base abilities are absolutely nothing. Like I said, 60% chance to inflict a shock on every special. Doesn't matter the special, it doesn't change. And then her shocks have her specials have a varying amount of chance to stun. And that's pretty much it. The big thing, though, is the fact that when duped, and I have mine at SIG level 40 here in the Content Creator Program Beta, her special attacks have an increased damage. The higher the opponent's power is, you'll see that a little bit, but not too often. But I'll show it when you did, like the 60,000 I think I did against Winter Soldier earlier, and you see some really big numbers as well later on. Storm's base damage, it leaves a little bit to be desired for sure. As a 6-star rank 2, she's doing less than 3,000 on a medium crit here without class advantage. I definitely have a lot of other champions who would be doing at least a little bit more than that, if not better. But now with this Apocalypse synergy, all of Storm's damage comes really from those shocks and big specials. And she's always had the big specials, but the shocks just allow her to have a lot of damage going on the whole fight, just from the tick over time here. Sometimes it can be slightly difficult to refresh with the heavy attack, but most of the time there is no problem. That special did 15,000 without critting there, and luckily her SP2 gives you enough time to launch off 2 heavy attacks. You can get quite a few shocks off of that, up to 17 now, dealing 3,500 I think per tick. Yeah, I thought I would land a heavy attack there off of his SP2, but I accidentally launched a light attack, which is why I did the weird combo there. Building up this many shocks is great, and if I was also combined with a Despair Mastery, I also could have used that to reverse healing, because, like I said, keeping up this amount of shocks is really easy. 63,000 there against Rhino. He had a pretty good level of power there. So, speaking of healing, I'm not actually running Despair, but I decided to go in against the Lionheart path here in 6-4-5. The last 2 fights were in 6-3-6, so I mostly hung around late Act 6 here. So I wanted to go against Lionheart path. It's a pretty basic path, a couple basic champions here, but they're getting some good healing, so it's even more health for Storm to just kind of slowly chip away at her. Not really slowly, I guess, when she has 30 shocks on the opponents pretty quickly. But right there, first SP1 sadly didn't land the shock, but the second one did. The 30% offensive ability accuracy increase, just by being a Horseman from her base abilities, is a really good thing for Storm to have, because the 60% shock chance, it's good, but it's not guaranteed. And the thing is, once you get that first shock, you can get so many more. So that's really where RNG comes into play here in this in these new abilities for Storm. Chaining in my special attacks into heavy attack. First time I tried that didn't really work against X-23, but it did the second time. This is going to be the longest fight, not only because Storm has class disadvantage, but because, like I was talking about RNG, it comes into play here, where I don't get shocks on my first 2 SP1s. But once I actually get that first shock, the fight really, really changes. So yeah, first one doesn't land that shock. And I think it's funny because I believe her SP1 also has a 60% chance. So it was the same amount of chance to get both, and I think I get stunned on the first 2. Whereas I could have just, gotten lucky and gotten both, but it slows the fight down a lot. And I did kind of want to show this as a what can go wrong issue, but luckily it's not too much of an issue. Still a nice 20,000 SP1 there, which is really good for base crit damage. I think that's about what like Gamora was hitting as a 6-star rank 3, with only a couple of Fury buffs and that kind of stuff, so having a high sig level on Storm would definitely make a difference, I think, because you're going to get that increased special attack. You're going to get even more of an increased special attack damage the higher the opponent's power. But luckily, against someone like Darkhawk, I'm not normally getting them past like 2 bars of power, so I don't think it's making too much of a difference anyways. Although I could definitely be wrong there. So finally, third SP1, it's going to get that shock, and now we can start to apply it more. You can see that 1 turns into 4 immediately with a heavy attack. See what that 4 turns into. Only a 6, but still already outclassing his healing. Doing about double what that Arc Overload was trying to do. Over 1,000 per tick now. The passive Unstoppable is really, really nice to have. I haven't really mentioned it too much, but it's in the Horseman base abilities, and it's just really good if you make a mistake once per fight. You get that Unstoppable. You get to maybe like back out of a special attack or something like that. Her SP2 only did 8,000 there because of Darkhawk's shield mode reducing all of the damage there. But still now Storm's dealing 8,000 per second here with those shocks, and Darkhawk's kind of just melting at 2% per second here. And there he goes. That was once I got the shock debuff, it was a really good fight. Getting there was somewhat difficult. Against this Deadpool, it's Goldpool here, it's going to be a little bit easier. Like I said, that first special, if it lands the shock, things go a lot faster. Oh, it didn't land the first shock. I thought it did. That's my mistake. Hopefully, I think the second one does, though. I decided to bait out Goldpool's SP1 instead here. I figured that would give him less power. Yeah, there we go. There's the first shock. So yeah, first shock only deals 200 per second, or 200 per tick, so just about 400 per second. But Goldpool, just like Deadpool before, it was a really good fight because I can just land so many chained heavies in, and I can counter both of his specials with my heavy attack. Like especially from against the wall, I can just chain in here. And this gold pool now has 25 shocks on him. Hopefully I go for an SP2 here in a second. Yeah, it only does 20,000 though. Lost a lot on crit. The gold pool, look at him trying to heal up so much, but the shocks still went right through him. He was healing for like 6,000 a second there at one point, and you could actually see his health go back up, and then the shocks took it right back down. This Angela here, I think I have the worst luck against this Angela. Have a little bit of difficulty placing those first shocks. I think if you maybe the Sunspot synergy with the increased mutant special or increased mutant ability accuracy during special attacks would be really nice to have for Storm here. I was just running a base mutant mix of mutant crit team and what I needed for Apocalypse as well, which was Apocalypse himself, and then the Mr. Sinister synergy to activate the Horseman ability on the first fight of the quest. If you haven't already, definitely go check out the Apocalypse video, because that's a really, really good overview of all of him. And I talk a little bit about what the other Horsemen do during that thing as well, but mostly just wanted to focus on Apocalypse there. After 3 SP1s, finally landed that first shock on Angela. She was already below 50% when I landed it, though, so the rest of this fight is going to go really quickly here. Already up to 11 shocks on Angela. I think I can counter her SP1 my heavy. There we go. Almost messed up the range there. Sadly, Storm's her heavy attack has a pretty short range, along with a lot of the other original female characters in the game. But hasn't been too much of an issue. Right there, I used that Unstoppable I talked about it earlier to my advantage to get that last opening there to land the heavy attack. Final fight on this path here. Wanted to go against this Hulk Ragnarok. Hopefully get some good shock RNG, since the last 3 fights have had some really rough shock RNG. This Hulk Ragnarok, though, it's 645. He has a ton of health. Luckily, I do get that first shock. But now I just gotta kind of slowly chip away at him with all of those shocks. I keep saying slowly chip away, but honestly, it gets to a really, really good amount of chip just from those damage over time effects. He's trying to heal for 600. Doesn't matter. The shocks are doing now triple that with 11 of them. And yeah, now you can start to see that impact of 1% per 1% per tick here. Once I start to build up even more shocks, it'll be even faster here. 2 heavy attacks, 20 shocks. That's a pretty normal number, honestly, to see here. Bit of a recording mirror issue there, but that's fine. 25 shocks now. Tries to go for that heal again. See, if I had Despair, he would absolutely be reversing that, or at least being null. But now he's taking 10,000 per second with 34 shocks on him. Absolutely insane job by Storm. There are only 67 hits for the massive health pools in 645. Last fight also in 645. I want to go against this power struggle Doctor Strange. I just kind of wanted to see how only gaining power when her opponents did would affect her, and it really had no big effect. Once I got up to that first SP1, it was just like normal, and I just didn't need to use any other specials anyways. But one of the issues with this path is the fact that they also have Prey on the Weak. So every time my buffs get nullified, which Doctor Strange does with his Counter-Strike, he gains a really good amount of power. You can see it right here. He's now up to 2 bars of power after I just baited an SP2 and got the full evade there too. So I'm just going to go in and stun and heavy lock him. Sadly, only did 11,000 because Doctor Strange was both in his armor phase, and he also it also didn't crit. But now he's up to 20 shocks here, and I'm just going to keep heavying him in the corner, and it just kind of lets it happen. One thing that was interesting to notice during this is that the shocks don't seem to be ticking while I'm refreshing them, but I'm still getting like 2-3 ticks in between every heavy attack. But he kind of gets bored, I guess, of getting hit in the corner, decides to hit me with a special 3 zone. Luckily, Storm survives, and I'm just going to kind of let the shocks do their job here, taking off like 3% per tick there, which is really, really good. So that is Storm as a Horseman of Apocalypse. You can see her abilities. I just had them up here because I was referring to them, but They're super basic, and just with that one synergy and having the Horseman of Apocalypse ability, she becomes absolutely insane. Tons and tons of shock damage. So that's going to do it for this video. Hopefully you enjoyed. Go check out the Apocalypse review if you haven't already. And I'll hopefully have another video up on a different Horseman up a little bit later today. And I'll also be streaming at 5 p.m. Eastern for week 3 of the Summoner Showdown. So be sure to check that out. Thank you for watching. Hopefully you guys enjoyed, and I will see you guys in the next video.